Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. Over the weekend, the Chief Justice launched the 6th Judiciary Strategic Plan for 2026-2030. But in hindsight, the 4th and the 5th strategic plans have not bared much fruit, as Ugandans would see. 15% and 35% respectively. The question to Ugandans is, can justice or judiciary be able to provide what Ugandans yearn for? In this strategic plan, they say there'll be people-centered, but also the rule of law. They're also looking at one of those getting into digital transformation. But what has happened in the last 2 strategic plans, that they hope this will make a difference. If it is all below 30 or 40% there, how do they hope this will be able to deliver the justice that Ugandans desire? I have an excellent panel in the studio today to be able to make sense of this topic. Let me start with the lady on my left. Fiona Wall, the CEO of Fidelis Leadership Institute, is with us this evening. She's also a senior counsel at that. Good evening, Fiona, and it's good to have you back.
Good evening. Nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us here. Next to Fiona is Honorable John Taylor, representing the people of Bugabula North, but also the chairperson of the Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. Honorable John, it's good to have you back.
Thank you, Timothy. Good to be back, and good evening, our dear viewers.
Next to the Honorable is Mr. Enoch Barata, who is the Director of Legal Services at the NRM Secretariat. He's with us this evening. Good evening, Enoch, and it's good to have you back.
Nice to be here as well. Good evening to our viewers. A pleasure being here.
Counsel Jude Byamukama, a constitutional lawyer, is with us this evening also. Good evening, Jude, and it's good to have you back.
Thank you, Timothy. Good evening, viewers. It's always a delight to be here at UBC.
Lastly but not least, Honorable Godfrey Kabyanga, former Minister in charge of ICT and National Guidance, a member of the NRM and PLU at that. Good evening, Honorable, and it's good for you to come in time.
Good evening, viewers. PLU sends you greetings.
I had to throw in that one there. But also apologies coming from the substantive minister, Right Honorable Justin Lumumba Kasule, who has not been able to make it today because of some engagements. But able representation from Honorable Kabyanga is here. You can be part of the show. Go to our YouTube channel, drop your comment there. We'll get to it in a bit. Also, we're streaming live on Spaces on X, UBC Live there. Get there and drop your comment. Also for text or WhatsApp, the number is 0709 60 25 92 at that. Let's get into the conversation that was brought by the Chief Justice over the weekend. And I'll give you a bit of things that are in there. The 4th strategic plan, which was between 2016 and 2020, really performed at 15%. And also, partially, some of the things they talk about there that were not achieved, they give reasons why. But also the 5th strategic plan came into 2020 to 2025 in 5 years there and performed at 35%. The basics there was digital transformation for the judiciary moving forward. But let me give you what they're looking forward to delivering for Ugandans. The basic of this 6th strategic plan is in line with the NDP4, and they say the following are the goals they hope to attain: reduce backlog and speedy case disposal, improve the rule of law, create a predictable legal environment for citizens and investors, expand digital justice, that is e-filing, virtual hearing, electronic case management there, promote alternative dispute resolution, improve commercial justice, strengthen capacity, modernize it, but also promote people-centered justice and customer service. Those are some of the elements that are in this strategic plan. And let's see how far it can go. Honorable Kabyanga, it's only befitting that I come to you first. When you hear the 4th, the 5th, and now we're at the 6th, evaluation came in from the Attorney General, the Auditor General, sorry, and evaluated what was happening in the last 2. Does this make sense to you as government, and should Ugandans look forward to it? Why?
Yeah, thank you very much, Timothy. First of all, I would like to thank the judiciary for coming up with a very ambitious plan, and which is really workable. Just as you have noted yourself, why the performance was, one of the reasons why the performance was a bit low, it came out of digitization. First of all, the digital infrastructure. I think now it will be better because we have expanded the national backbone. And we now have money to even do the last mile connectivity, such that at any one time, the judiciary will be having internet. Because in the next 1 to 1.5 years, we shall have internet at parish level. And now there is also another provider who has come in, Starlink, which is coming in with satellite internet. And with the satellite internet, for it reaches everywhere because it's more efficient and effective. So I think when the digital infrastructure improves, then digitizing the whole of the judiciary and filing, keeping records, it will be easy. And that one will bring a lot of improvement. But I think now judiciary has also been given, the budget has improved, because also one thing which was letting the judiciary down was funding. And there is some improvement. And now with, with our zero tolerance to corruption, we strongly believe this funding will go to good use, and therefore it will improve the management of cases and the like. On judicial infrastructure, if you go around the country, the judiciary is now putting up buildings, courts. In Kasese now they have some new building, and I think once they put all that infrastructure in place, where they can house courts, I think it will also improve. But you should also know that staffing was also a problem, and now they have improved the staffing. They have also decentralized. They are further decentralizing the judicial system. Like now Kasese has a high court. Otherwise, in that region, the high court was in Fort Portal. And you'd see it was very, very difficult for someone to move from the far end of Kasese to Fort Portal. But now there is a judge, a resident judge in Kasese, which is going to improve. This resident judge will even now assist those people who come from as far as Rubirizi, who cannot go to Mbarara or Bushenyi. So I think if all these can be worked on, there will be a lot of improvement. And I would pray that government gives them more money. They employ more judicial officers. They further digitize, and then they put all the infrastructure in place. And then the ADR, this alternative dispute resolution, I think now people are adopting to it more easily. And you know, when it comes to these civil cases, I think that one will assist us, mainly when it comes to civil cases, so that these other judicial systems can concentrate on criminal cases. And I have also seen the increment in what do they call it, plea bargaining. I think I have now seen so many of those plea bargains coming up. I think with enough education, people will go for plea bargaining. Who come from the villages, some of the land disputes which end up in court are not supposed even to reach there. But it's stubbornness and a lot of ego and greed that makes, because you can see in a land case moving on for 20 years. Someone is defeated at LOC1, he goes and pleads to LOC3, is defeated, he goes to Magistrates Court, to High Court, to Court of Appeal, and all those stages that person is being defeated. But when you look at the real case, it's just greed. So I think some of these, we shall also need a lot of sensitization. But you should also know, Timothy, that the population is increasing. I was looking at the number of cases being registered per year. They're increasing every day. Because I think 2023, is it 2023, 24, it was about 3,000 something. 2024, 25, they had grown to 4,000 something. But all that is because, first of all, the population is increasing. Urbanization is also increasing. Some education, now people are educated. And now also people are now a bit aware that there is a need to seek legal redress on anything. So I think there the judiciary is doing well, because now people know that they can go to court if they are treated unfairly. And therefore, you should also know that as we improve infrastructure, digitization, more staff, more funding, the awareness of legal rights among the population, which is increasing, it's also what? Increasing. But I think we shall continue also praying for the judicial system to adopt to the changing trends and also become more efficient.
You mentioned the digital transformation, and a lot has been done by the judiciary to be able to do that, case management electronically. But how are they embracing? Because they were talking 5 months ago, they were talking about getting AI help with the writing judgments, ensuring that it is done within time. You were in this docket. How has your former docket helped them to embrace technology in this?
I think what I'd forgotten is now they can even try people using Zoom. So now you may not need to be physically in court. You can use digital systems to be tried. I have seen if prisons can't bring you to court, they can even you can teleconference with the judicial officer. Now, for us as Ministry of ICT, I have always I'm associated to the ministry. So if I say for us, first of all, we as NRM and we as PLOU. So for us, as Ministry of ICT, our work is to put in place the infrastructure and also to give technical advice to the judiciary and tell them what they need to improve their systems. And we have given them that expertise. And just as I've told you, we are improving the infrastructure. First of all, internet, we are looking at a time when internet will be available and also affordable. And that's why in the last 2 years, internet has reduced from $70 per megabyte per second to $35 per megabyte per second. And we think when Starlink comes in, when we complete our infrastructure, then the phase 5 of the national backbone and the last mile connectivity, we want internet to reach $5 per megabyte per second. And if we can do that, and we also advise judiciary on the best technology, then it will be okay. But there is AI now. AI is coming in. And it is also coming in with so many advantages and also what? Challenges. And automatically, AI is coming in and the judiciary will be able to process huge data. Because AI, the main advantage of AI, you can process big data in a shortest possible time. But it also comes with so many other challenges associated to it. But I think the judiciary is doing well as far as the digital transformation is concerned, digitization is concerned, and the Ministry of ICT is ready to support them.
And we'll come back to regulation of AI on another day, but not today. Yeah. Jude, let me come back to you. Jude, when you look at manpower has been given, resources have been given, infrastructure is in a good place, how would you rate our judiciary system vis-a-vis this strategic plan that they're putting forward?
I think when we look at the judiciary strategic plan, it's very ambitious, and it is easy to think that there is a lot they are able to achieve, but there is a track record. When we look back at the past 10 years, the first 15 years, I don't think we can be confident that the judiciary is up to the task. One, we need to disabuse ourselves of this assumption that quantity necessarily translates into quality. We have more judges, we have more magistrates, we have easier access to justice on paper. Because when you look at it, like the Honorable Minister was saying, when you look at, there's a High Court judge sitting in Kasese, there's a High Court judge sitting in Kabale, there's a High Court judge sitting in Moroto, there's a High Court judge sitting in Arua. So there is this external appearance of the judiciary is now in our face. Some 15 years ago, if someone was charged with a capital offense in Chisoro or in Moroto, they would have to be driven 200 kilometers before they can reach a courtroom which has a High Court judge. And probably that would happen once in 2 years. But now it can happen within a month, within 2 months, which is progress. But what we need to assess and ask ourselves is, when we look at the case backlog which the judiciary has, is it a problem primarily caused by absence of manpower, or is it also an issue of the organizational culture and the attitude? There are many players that contribute to case backlog. The quality of judicial officers we have and their work rate is something that we must also candidly discuss. How much are they able to do? When we look at the benefits that every judicial officer is taking home, whether a judge of the High Court, a justice of appeal, or a magistrate grade 1, are they commensurate with the value we expect? If we compare whether people in other areas of public service who get similar benefits, what do they deliver to the public? It's a conversation that we need to have. And then we also need to ask ourselves, is case backlog purely a judicially created problem? Or is it also about other players within the justice, law and order sector? We have Uganda Police, we have who do the investigations when it comes to criminal cases. We have, of course, the legal profession. They are also important players in all this. And then we have, of course, even the law schools that train the lawyers that end up becoming judges, magistrates, and all. There are several players who are involved. By the time you have a civil dispute or you have a criminal case that makes its way into the courtroom, there are several other players. Now, if we focus on supporting one player, the judiciary, let's have the judges and the magistrates all over the country. But we are not supporting when it comes to criminal cases. For example, the police stations. You go to a police station and they tell you what a police station has 4 or 5 investigating officers handling 200 cases. And then an investigating officer tells you, I'm supposed to go and testify in the courts in 5 districts. I'm supposed to go here. Or I don't have the resources to investigate. So someone is arrested and is charged. Maybe the magistrate or judge is ready to try them. But you have not supported the other players who make delivery of justice efficient. This is not a problem that will go away. When you look at our case backlog, if you split it into criminal and civil, when you look at the criminal, our criminal case backlog translates into congestion in prisons. You have so many people who are on pre-trial detention, people who are arrested and are charged, but their trials take forever to happen. And it's been recent, when His Excellency the President was commenting about the BSG trial, he has been complaining that, it's being delayed, it's now 2 years, But we have people who are on remand for 5 years before they are tried. If someone was to give you a study, I think the average is around 3 to 4 years. So how do you change that? You have to focus also on the other players in the criminal justice system who provide material that makes sure a trial is able to happen. When it comes to civil cases, when you go to many up-country courts, many of the litigants, people who are suing each other, are not represented by lawyers. And so there is a lot of work that goes in before a magistrate or a judge can actually hear a case. You go into land disputes. The largest number of civil disputes all over the country are largely land-related. So for you to solve them, there are several other issues you need to deal with. The land registry, which is also a source of land disputes. Titling of land. When you go to up-country, you'll find there are so many disputes about boundary. My land stops here, this is not your plot, I inherited this. Disputes which require titling. So, case backlog, I think, can be solved by looking at the justice system holistically. And also we have to confront some uncomfortable questions, such as how have we, our adjudication system, is it fit for the purpose? Why should someone look at how we manage traffic offenses? It's now almost normal. If I'm overspeeding, maybe I'll be given a ticket and then I'll pay it. But it could have been that if I'm overspeeding, I'm arrested, then I'm remanded. If I can't get bail, then I contribute to the statistics. There are so many petty offenses which generate a lot of people on remand. So we need to think creatively whether that is useful. And so the judiciary has to play a role that goes way beyond. The numbers are not enough. How the judiciary perceives the quality of justice that is currently being delivered, and how they can work within the existing machinery to improve the turnover of a case. Obviously, there are also rules of procedure in the courts of law that can sometimes hamper the pace at which a trial can go. And that is where even Parliament becomes an important player. Do they care to update the rules of procedure which courts of law follow? Every 5 years, members of Parliament have their own, they always update the rules of procedure that govern proceedings in Parliament. But in the judiciary, the rules of procedure that govern conduct of civil matters, conduct of criminal matters, some of them are rules that are 30, 40 years old. They are not fit for the purpose. And so we have to have a conversation that is holistic to be able to get a solution to the case backlog and to be able to understand whether the judiciary's 5-year plan is realistic in light of all those obstacles and challenges ahead.
Thank you very much. And you broaden the conversation to bring in other players there. That really makes sense. Enoch, let me come to you, especially as the government in power. What does that relationship look like between the executive and the judiciary? Because some concerns have been felt there's an overreach to be able to run how the judiciary runs there. But looking at the strategic plan, can the executive let the judiciary do its part in this whole?
Absolutely. Now, 15% on the last plan vis-a-vis the new plan, which is ambitious and where it can be achieved. I think what you have heard from the two previous discussants here is that there is a lot when you talk about delivery of justice and achievement of that plan. So the question is, what is constituted in, for example, that 15%? Because you have things like internet, reliable internet. It might hamper the achievement, in a significant part, it might hamper the achievement of the judicial plan, of the judiciary's plan, and yet it is not in control. It is not within the control of the judiciary. So you have to start allocating some of these challenges in order to put in perspective the performance of the judiciary. What is clear though is that the judiciary has significantly improved its performance, significantly improved its delivery over the last 5 to 10 years. You have talked about manpower, at least there is some increase there. I think if you compare the period 2016-2020 and the period 2020 to now, you had about 450 judicial officers in total. Now you have about 700. You have about 223 magistrates around the country. You have 38 regional high court circuits. That's what Honorable Kabyanga was talking about. There are now more high court judges sitting in many other places. If you divide, for us in the movement, we usually divide the country in 18 sub-regions. So if you divide the 38 circuits in the sub-region, you'll find that each sub-region, on average, has about 2 high court circuits. And I think that is a very good turnaround. The intention, I think, in this plan, for example, is to increase even the chief magisterial areas to 157, so that each district has a permanent chief magistrate and so on and so forth. So for me, if I am rating the performance of that plan, I will rate, has the impact on the court users, has there been impact, positive impact on the court users? The court users being mainly the litigants, the public. Has there been impact? There has been, of course, a better delivery of cases. I think it stands right now at about 57%, and the previous year was almost 59%. But that is again the drop. There seems to be a drop, but that is because of what Honorable Kabyanga has just mentioned, that the drop is simply because the number of cases has gone up. The number of cases being filed has gone up. So there are more cases disposed, but when you put it in percentage terms, the percentage drops. And what does that show? That shows that the public is increasingly confident about the service delivery of the judiciary, and so they are approaching it more and more, filing more and more cases. They are obviously also a lot more enlightened, a lot more educated, a lot more civically aware. So they will file more and more cases, and this is going to continue as we develop naturally. These things go hand in hand. So there are many things to look at, but at the same time, as Honorable Kabyanga has also mentioned, he mentioned financing. The judiciary, I think, has taken in the range of maybe 1% or slightly more, just slightly more of the national budget. So that's still, and remember, we have 3 arms of government. So if you're looking in, if you look at it in that term, I know that can be potentially misleading. But if you look at it simply as a parameter, you will agree that that is a small portion. So there are still a number of things to do. If you look at, for example, infrastructure, you will find the performance on infrastructure very, very low. Why? Because you have now to prioritize the allocation of the resources. Are you going to prioritize allocation of resources to building magistrates' courts around the country vis-a-vis employing more judicial officers to reduce the backlog? So it becomes now a game of how do we prioritize the funding that we have as a people. So if you, I was in a court in here, very near here in Madu, in Gomba, and it is one room, and there are 2 magistrates. So one has to first finish their shift, their cases, while another one is there redundant. They have come to work on time, but he's redundant now because he does not have an operating space. So when you weigh the performance, you can see that they are really making every effort to perform, and I have the greatest confidence that this performance will increase. The manpower has increased, but is not quite at the level that is sufficient, but there's been great strides. So that comes to that. Then you come to the other players, indeed, who feed into this system. And that is where also in these players, you will need perhaps what can be loosely called mindset change. Why do I have border riders who got drunk at some stage somewhere on a Friday evening? They were most likely drunk, so you detain them and you keep them Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then on Saturday you arrest more, on Sunday you arrest more. And it was really, for all intents and purposes, a drunken brawl. And even the complainant, whoever thinks he was assaulted, is not going to return. That matter ended. It was a drunken brawl. It was really, for all intents and purposes, a public nuisance. But now you have these people. First of all, they have congested the police station, which itself is very, very, its facilities are very limited, so there is already a load there. Then the police must now carry those same people, take them to a court, a magistrate's court. So you have added on the load, and this is just a brawl, a drunken brawl. And then they are remanded to Ruzira. Now you have also added numbers there. So you can see how it snowballs over and over again. So there needs to be, to address also certain areas. That is why, for example, pre-bargaining has been a significant success, and ADR, and that has come out of consistent sensitization. So with all services across government sectors improving, there is no doubt that this will improve. But those are some of the contributors of what we can call the low performance or the inefficiencies within the judiciary. Going into more detail, there are other more technical things that may affect the judiciary, like what other roles are they playing other than being judges? How many days are they effectively sitting? And do they have a way out? I have seen these arguments raised. So it is important, but in my view, there is progress. And what we need to do is to continuously support the judiciary to improve its sources. We must also recall that, truly speaking, the judiciary has also only very recently started operating as an independent arm of government after the passing of the administration of justice bill, right? That's what it's called. Administration of Judiciary Act. So only then now is it managing its own financing and so on and so forth. And those are some of the improvements that you have seen kicking in, and they will continue to kick in. The numbers, if you look at the numbers, I think the total caseload, active caseload, is in the region about 450,000 cases, maybe somewhere there. And so the disposal rate is at about 57%. So that's not bad at the moment. There is a lot of room for improvement, but that is not bad when you consider. And that also has been because of the increased number of judicial officers and the increased number of resources. Interestingly, one interesting fact is that criminal cases are have the quickest disposal rate, and the land disputes have the lowest disposal rate. The disposal rate is about 44%. So you can see where the challenges are, and you can begin to see that when you assess an institution like that, you cannot assess it outside the society in which it is operating.
Thank you. Yeah. Honorable Taylor, just speaking from what Jude and Enoch have spoken about, especially now let's go to the people of Bugabula North and the Antonde that you mentioned. Why is there a very loud outcry from the public not feeling the judiciary coming out there to feel that justice is being achieved for them?
Well, thank you, Timothy. From the way things have been, I think, one, we need to applaud government for the milestone so far achieved in terms of improving the judicial system in this country. I've been a member of the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee for the last 5 years, and the judiciary budget ran from 376 billion, went to 381, 390, 444, now 665. Now, that's a very great improvement in terms of financing, which has been one of the key hindrances for the dispensation of justice. They could not afford to recruit judicial officers. They could not even find premises in some areas. Now, that explains why in the last 5 years, the performance being at 15% is not, that will not have any reflection on the current strategies that have been put in place. Because when you speak about manpower, the system is made in such a way that you must have judicial officers to dispense justice, whether you like it or not, whether they are good or bad. The very first step that they have to be in place. And in the last 2-3 years, we have seen the judicial officers increasing from a number of about 300 and something to 700 plus. So on the side of manpower, there is a very great improvement. Like you mentioned, the High Court, such which are literally in every sub-region. In Busoga, I have one in Jinja and then one in Iganga now. And there is a resident judge seated there, mainly, who will be mainly listening to appeals and big cases. But also, I have a positive note in this new development because, one, if you look at personalities, I am very optimistic with the progressive character of the current Chief Justice. When he came in, you would see visible improvements that started happening. First of all, we were lobbied as a Committee of Parliament to discuss the issue of backlog per se as a committee, and we had a lot of time discussing it. And one of the things which came out was the increase of the pecuniary jurisdiction of magistrates, chief magistrate, from 50 million to 200 million. And then the pecuniary jurisdiction of the magistrate grade 1 from 20 million to 100 million. Now, originally, the proposal was that we increase the pecuniary jurisdiction of the chief magistrate to 100 million. But the question is, a plot of land in Wakiso or a plot of land in Kamuli Town is maybe above 100 million. So you're creating that you have a judicial officer whom you're paying 12 million shillings per month, because this is public information, but cannot adjudicate over a plot of land of 50 by 100. And that was, we saw it very unreasonable. And so when the Chief Justice came in to speak to the increment from 100 million shillings to 200 million shillings, we saw value and then accepted that increase, that increment to 200 million. And this will speak to the number of files which are attended to by the Chief Magistrate in civil matters. The other challenge we are having in criminal matters is I think there is a lack of synergies within the just law and order sector players. In Kamuli, for example, you have 4 magistrates because it is handling both Buyende district and Kamuli district. But until recently, we had 1 state attorney. So this gentleman had to sit in this court while the other 3 judicial officers are waiting for him to finish and go and prosecute cases in the other courts. And then when he finishes the second one, he has to move into the third one. So we now need to seriously address the synergizing of all the sector players to ensure that there is uniformity, first of all in remuneration, in benefits, but also in terms of numbers. That you don't have a judicial officer a station which has 5 judicial officers or 3 judicial officers, but again with 1 or 2 state attorneys who cannot prosecute cases at the same time. Yet at the time of cause listing, they will say, today is criminal cases, tomorrow is civil cases. Now you're having all the judicial officers attending criminal cases, but you don't have the prosecutors prosecute them. So we have taken this matter seriously, and we are appealing to all the powers that be to ensure that the Directorate of Public Prosecutions has a matching number with the number of judicial officers to ensure that there is active participation. Then the other key aspect which has been hindering the performance to create that lack of visibility by the people of Uganda is the supervisory role of the Judicial Service Commission. In our latest interaction with the Judicial Service Commission, we were amazed by the proactiveness of the chairperson, who created a number of changes that I'm sure some of you could even have heard it, are not auguring so well with those who are rooted in the traditional setting of events. You have a Judicial Service Commission which is supposed to investigate complaints about judicial officers, especially non-performance, misbehavior, corruption and all that. But according to the budget, it has budgeted that the Judicial Service Commission shall have 14 sittings in a year. You have 500 plus complaints coming in 1 year, 1 calendar year. But the number of sittings are supposed to be 14. And they cannot go beyond the 14 sittings. Reason, there is no budget. So they come to sit 2-3 times in a quarter, go back and again wait for another quarter to come. So what has happened is that the proactiveness of the leaders of these institutions has actually breathed a new life in the way they are performing. And so in the last year, because of the new changes by the new chairperson of that office, the Judicial Service Commission was able to sit over 40 times and attend to the various complaints. What Jude is referring to is basically human integrity in the office of the judicial officers. And there is no way you're going to address the issue of human integrity without having a policing hand within the system. If you allow people to do laissez-faire, they will do what they want. One time I visited one of the magistrates' courts and we waited up to around midday and the magistrate had not arrived, the chief magistrate. Then when we went to inquire from the clerk, he said, but last time he was talking about his friend's wedding in Gulu. I think they are going to Gulu. I don't think if the wedding is tomorrow, he can be here today on a Thursday. Even the clerk is not aware that the chief magistrate is not coming to tell the clients of this chief magistrate who have been sleeping in the grass around the court premises from morning, because they told them come at 9. They've been there from 9. But that was a Thursday. There was a likelihood that there are those who would come on Friday. So the lack of supervision because of the traditional mindset that we have rooted into the judiciary is itself a problem. But also, and I'm glad Fiona Wall is here with us, the role of other players which still Jude referred to. There was a time when the Uganda Law Society, which is the biggest consumer of judicial service in this country, as the number one clientele, was also in the field of lamentation like all others. But, and I don't know if is it age or something, if you look at the trend of how the Uganda Law Society has performed from the time of, there was an abrupt switch from senior leaders to now young people taking over responsibilities. So you had the Fiona Walls, the Bernard Owundos, and then I don't know how to categorize this current one, but I'll just go by the radical new bar. The approach has been different, that there is demand for accountability. There is a force that is pushing people to respond to the cries of the people, whether you like it or not. And when you introduced the Honorable Kabyanga as PROU, that is the life that these new forces are breathing into civil service. They are demanding that potholes must be done, and they end up being done. The other day, the Honorable Yamukama was at Northern Bypass. We had suffered with the Northern Bypass. I don't know for how long. You reach there, the other side is blocked. There is no single machine moving, and it's business as usual. The man goes there and demands that things must be done, and in 2 weeks, they say we are going to open, and it is open, and traffic is moving. I'm so optimistic with this new generational breath that is coming into to create pressure for accountability in terms of performance of service by office bearers. In a parliament, there is if you look at chairpersons of committees, it's a particular age bracket with a very, very strong wind of vibrancy that is being created. And we are pushing for that, and I want to invite Ugandans to continue in that spirit and ensure that every single office bearer is performing their duties. Timothy, there is no single reason why a judicial officer who is paid to be at station will not, and this has been the norm. As long as the next weekend is visitation, the judicial officer will not be there on Friday. And there is no one taking stock of this. There is no one creating this accountability. There is no one attending to this. And when he's not there, in fact, we had actually created a kind of semi-gods in those offices. Then the last bit is that because we are synergizing the sector players, I think the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, and we have had these interactions, these days there is a high appetite of sanctioning of files. And unless we speak candidly to this, all civil matters are ending up as criminal matters. This one borrows money, he pays half, he fails to pay the other half, they create a charge, obtaining money by false pretense. They run to court. The state attorney sanctions, they arrest. So police is congested. Actually, it's an expense to arrest. But the underlying factor is that before this person leaves the cells, he must have spoken right. And by speaking right, I know you know what I mean. So these institutions, these institutions, and I remember one time Mr. Pius Bigirimana insisted that we should have all of them under the jailers, so that they are speaking to one another, so that there is, if we demand accountability from judicial officers, then the same voices should be speaking to the prosecutors, should be speaking to the members of the Judicial Service Commission to perform their duties, and they should also be speaking to the police, which is doing the arrest, which is doing the charging, and then eventually the state attorney sanctioning these files. So all this put together, I think I believe I have a lot of confidence in the strategy, given the budgetary implications. You moved from 300 billion to 600 plus billion. The budget of the DPP has increased. The personalities heading these institutions are very vibrant, energetic, and progressive people. I trust that we shall achieve. It is not an ambitious plan.
Thank you. Let me come to Fiona. Fiona, fortunately, you've been in this area for a while. When you look at the budget from 300 to 600 million, improvement in DPP, but also there is a lame duck, police, prisons in this whole play. Can Ugandans get value for money, especially that we're spending money to ensure that this happens, but yet it's still falling short? The Chief Justice was absent in a wedding, but there are people waiting there. And Ugandans are expecting value for the money they're spending. Is that possible?
I want to express the optimism of Honorable. There is a change in the face of public service in that area, in the access to justice space, I'll call it the jailor space. When you look at, and I wanted to go back to Enoch's contextualization, it's a bit unfair to compare the last 10 years, because according to me, the judiciary started actually working in 2020 when the act was passed, because that act it sort of brought to life what the judiciary was supposed to be as an actual arm of government. So for me, I would look at just comparatively, I would look at the last 5 years. Now, in the last 5 years, the judiciary was forced to do a macro approach. What I mean by the macro is there was no infrastructure, there were no numbers, there's no staffing. So these are the basics. And what I really like about this particular strategy is, if I may be allowed, I was looking at it and trying to see what is new. And I think it reflects the leadership also of the Chief Justice. One, you can see that they're not starting from a vacuum. They're not promising 100%. They've actually said they'll double the performance of the previous one. They might not reach 100% of the backlog. Two, they are starting from where the previous strategies. So that's already a realistic theory of change. Then the result-based framework. Now they're being micro. They're looking into why is it not working? Where do we fine-tune? When you look at, and I think Council talked about it, when he talked about the difference between quality and quantity. This strategy actually speaks to quality, because the aspect of the year-by-year results framework, the dedicated push for a fully fledged M&E function, this is not in any of the other strategies. There's M&E, but in this particular strategy, M&E management information system, they are digitalizing management they're digitalizing performance management, which for those of us that have experienced ECMIS is likely going to improve accountability and reporting. I have seen, I saw even the CID has now digitalized some of their performance management, and it is actually bearing results as somebody who benefits from those services. This full monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework, that is also a very new thing, which is coming away from the old thinking that judicial officers know everything and therefore they are equipped to manage everything. In my previous life, I was head of legal for National Water and Sewerage Corporation, and we used to add about 70 cases to the system every week because of water theft and water offenses that were created by the Water Act, and judicial officers and prosecutors didn't understand these offenses until the judiciary joined with us and with the other utilities and created the utilities court, where the judicial officers are now trained in aspects of utilities management, so that when special, for instance, wildlife, the wildlife regulations that create offenses, they are now understood. So now you have actually the turnaround time turned from 5 years to 3 months in that particular utilities courtroom 1, Buganda Road. That's already something I can say in the last 10 years. I think this was done in Justice Katurebe's time. But when you use that same thing and look at what they're planning to do here, the micro, to look at how do we fine-tune, the emphasis on ADR mechanisms should not be underlooked. Honorable has spoken to criminalizing civil cases. Land cases are mostly civil. A lot of land cases are criminalized. So if you find that in a particular land case, there is a case in family, there's a case in, you find that one particular case is actually contributing to backlog in 3 divisions. And this is because we lawyers sometimes misuse the courts in this way, but also people are looking for justice any way they can. So the analysis of this matter, promoting ADR mechanisms, is going to close out those matters. And we've seen a lot of work being done even at the Court of Appeal, which I think is very, very innovative, having ADR at the Court of Appeal, because there are people, I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of government institutions will appeal for the sake of it, because the parliamentary committee on legal, not on PAC, yes? PAC and COSASE are going to say, why did you pay this person after the first case? You're supposed to go up to the Supreme Court so that we know that government really has to pay. But if government really has to pay, Why would you waste court time, 15 years in court, and then lose money, and then there's all these attorney general's fees that he has to pay at the end of the day. So this ADR is going to go very far in reducing the case backlog. I also like what the previous speakers said about the environment, the enabling environment. The judiciary does not, and in 2020, when we were advocating for the administration of the judiciary bill, the problems of that bill started with Parliament in 2016, when the ruling came and Parliament was denied the extension of 2 years, if you remember, and then they retaliated by refusing to pass that administration bill. Now we had two arms of government, defeating this thing, and I think I want to applaud the Law Society because they went to court to protect that, and that happened, and the bill was passed. But when the bill was passed into an act, the focus now became the judiciary. But what I like about this particular strategic plan is that it is embedded in the Access to Justice Framework program. There's a wider program. These jailhouse institutions are actually working together. As I speak, I know that the DPP needs about 50% more funding in order to meet some of the bottlenecks that our speakers have been highlighting. We also realize that we need the CID to be efficient, to increase their prosecutorial capacity, their investigative capacity. We also understand that it is not enough to have these, but we also need I did research some time back with the Law Society, and we found that Ugandans trust LC1 courts more than they trust courts. I don't know whether you have this data, but I think you need to look into it, yes? So what does this mean? It means that if we were to strengthen the LC1 court's capacity to deal with some of these small disputes, and this is why I'm talking to the micro efficiency of this strategy for me, because it now speaks to things like increasing the jurisdiction of the smaller courts, so that they can deal with, you are trying to get each district to have a chief magistrate. But if the chief magistrate's jurisdiction cannot manage almost all the things in that district, then it's redundant. So I like how there is a tighter integration with new tools, because even they're not just saying we're going to do digitization, they're giving you targets. And Jude said it was ambitious. I actually think it's very conservative, and I think it speaks to the kind of perfectionism we've seen with the Chief Justice in the previous roles that he has served. I think it's better sometimes to under-promise and over-deliver, and I think that with how realistic this is, because it gives specific targets. Even with ECMIS, I was a bit disappointed that they're not promising 100% at the end of 5 years. And when you speak, when Honorable was speaking about the actual realistic targets for us for 2030, we're not yet there. So what am I saying? I am optimistic. I think this is a more realistic strategic plan. We have to be mindful of the fact that the judiciary is not a have-it-all. How can I say? It cannot exist in a vacuum. We need to equip the whole justice system, and government actually has to go beyond the 1%. Enoch, you're not government, but you're in charge of government. So we need to see that justice, because when you look at the aspect of next to health, I think justice is a life and death need. It's a need for Ugandans. And in 2020, there was an alarming, 2018, there's an alarming situation that was saying that access to courts for Ugandans is at 5%. Accessibility was at 5%, that only 5% of Ugandans could access courts. So now we have more courts, but then we have an enabling system that is not yet equipped to make this a reality. So we need to put our money where our mouth is. And I think the challenge is not only to the judiciary. I think the judiciary is telling you, I am here, I have analyzed myself, I know what I'm going to do, but I need resources to do this. So the question now is to the parliamentary committees and everybody to ensure that they have the resources, but to also ensure that the judiciary, I'm sorry to say this, but sometimes budgeting and financial accessibility and empowerment of government programs and government depends on the lobbying capacity of the leader, and I think it shouldn't be. I think that we should have, especially the parliamentary committees, lobbying for the DPP, CID. These are organizations that are not led by what? By politicians per se or by lobbyists, but these are people that need funding in order to be efficient, in order to deliver. As we speak, there's a new whole JLOS building. I think they're in better premises. The police seem to be improving on their infrastructure, but I think that we need to see a balanced growth of the whole JLOS sector in order to answer the access to justice question in Uganda.
Thank you. Let me read some feedback that has come through. This is Savia from Mitiana. He says, I commend UBC talking about the judiciary plan. However, the efficiency alone cannot eliminate case backlog. The judiciary must also fight corruption, strengthen accountability, recruit more judicial officers, ensure equity for all with integrity plan to make sure that the intended goals are achieved. Okay, thank you very much. This is lengthy. He's Vincent from Corporate Security Services. He says, I commend the judiciary for making sure they have a plan, but also addressing the persistent challenges of case backlog, which continue to deny many Ugandans timely justice. I respect the submissions. The judiciary must embrace the digital initiatives. Can Uganda establish a legally recognized electronic tracking system that is there for litigation, advocates, police, prisons, or a system that speaks to all? More delays rise to files missing, reporting mentioned, poor coordination, justice institutions. Is the judiciary considering an integrated digital platform? Okay, thank you there. Good evening, Timothy. Thank you for the show. Judiciary should also improve on the standards operating within the Constitution. However, some cases make them look ugly, like in Masaka. The case in Masaka, also Besige's case, they plan and then they let us all look at them in a different way. This is Alfred from Zombo. Thank you, Alfred. Finally, judiciary is so disappointing. It can do nothing to reduce the case backlog because it's not independent. They cannot make independent decisions. Magistrates must first consult, reaching a decision which prolongs the case. Any good reason, but also politics is at play. Case backlog will not go away. Okay, I'm following the topic here. This is Wanda from Busoga. I send my greetings to the people in the studio, and I'm following the topic there. We'll read the other messages when we come back from this break. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to interrogate the details within this strategic plan that are there. This and more after this break.
MTN voice bundle. Load. Hey. Hello, Mama. Hey, it is me, your son, Opio. Hey, now, Mama, listen to me. MTN has the offer. Yes, it has the offer. You load from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Now they have free MTN to MTN minutes. And those minutes are there all day. So you load, you'll thank me later. Hey, Mama.
Load an MTN voice bundle between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. and get 3 free MTN to MTN minutes valid all day. Dial *100 *21# and get your free minutes bully daily. Free your fire with free minutes from MTN. Together, our connection is unstoppable. MTN.
We don't need anyone's permission to move forward. We never have. What we need is the power to do it our way. To move our people, our goods, our ideas across cities that breathe with our energy. Bureau is not your typical EV company. It's the power grid for African ambition. A network that connects Nairobi to Kigali, Lagos to Lomé, Dar to Kampala. Not with cables and wires, but with clean, quiet, relentless movement. Every swap keeps the city running. Every ride links one life to another. We're copying no one else's future. It's we who powers the cities we live in. It's we who shapes the world we'll become. This is Africa, powered by us.
The Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, MEMD, warns the public that fraudsters using fake social media accounts to solicit money while falsely claiming they can secure licenses, appointments with the Honourable Minister, or influence ministry decisions. Please note, you do not pay to meet the Honourable Minister or any Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development officials. Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development has not authorized anyone to collect money on its behalf. All Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development services are free of charge, except for statutory fees provided for by the law. Verify any communication by contacting info@energy.go.ug. Report any suspected fraud to the Ministry and the relevant law enforcement.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project. That answers somebody's question.
The Front Bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. I'm joined by Fiona Wall, Honorable John Taylor, Enoch Barata, Jude Byamkama, and also Honorable Godfrey Kabyanga. We're discussing the strategic plan that was brought out by the judiciary. That's their 6th strategic plan. Let me read 3 messages and jump into this conversation. Let us talk about having high courts giving different judgments in in the same set or the same matter or related matters. Secondly, there should be training for magistrates who do not research, or for judges who write wrong judgments. We have bad judgments because the magistrates do not do their work. Okay, interesting opinion. Good evening, my name is Wawire Moses from Chibuku districts. Case backlog is created by judicial officers, advocates, DPP, police, hence attracting corruption. For instance, an advocate prays for a longer adjournment. Judiciary officers delay sentencing to allow relatives of the accused person to bribe them and things like that. Thank you very much. And finally, this is for Enoch. Someone says, this is Philip from Karamoja. Why is there increased difficulty to do the right thing in our judicial system as per the Constitution? Are we happy to have people languishing in prison so long as they are there for the wrong reasons and the wrong arrest? I hope Enoch has taken note of this one, but let me come to Fiona. Fiona, let's get to the nuts and bolts of this. You mentioned something that really caught me, especially when Parliament failed to pass, now that we have an act. These 3 arms of government,
yes,
what should be their relationship? Especially looking at when it comes in an area of contestation where one has to pass the law, one has to implement it, or one wants a certain direction to go. How should the relationship be? Because at some point it feels like the handshake is going to the elbow. Yes.
Well, the late Justice Kanyehamba wrote a fantastic book called Constitutionalism in Uganda, and in it he really speaks to what the ideal situation should be. They are cooking stones, and they should be balanced. So that 1% is really it's not a stone, you know, it's a marble. So that's the ideal situation, though. I don't think there is any jurisdiction in the world that has that situation. But coming from the ideal situation, ideally the basic role of having three arms of government should be, and also promoting their independence, should be their ability to check each other. It's about increasing accountability in the hands of where power is, yes. So because the elephants, when elephants fight, the grass suffers. So for the benefit of the ordinary man, we need accountability to be higher the higher you go. And that's why these arms of government are supposed to check each other. But they also have the power to work together and sort of, they say iron sharpens iron, and make each other sharper. We've seen parliamentary committees calling the executive to check on when they're excessive in the exercise of power. We've seen the judiciary checking parliament, you know, or the executive when they abuse their power. We've also seen the judiciary being checked by different situations. But there are certain idealistic norms that sometimes cause problems. Sometimes these arms misunderstand the aspect of independence to mean you're untouchable, you're above the law, you're above being checked. We've seen situations where the arms are sort of challenging each other's ability to check them, and that causes problems. But also there's a problem that I think is very has contributed to some of the issues we have, and I don't think it's going to be popular here, especially with Enoch. The problem of having people in 2 or 3 arms of government. I think that conflict causes a lot of problems. When you have an executive from parliament or a judicial person who is now serving in an executive role, these are things that have caused problems before. These are things that courts have ruled on, but we still continue to do. I think that since our honourable member of parliament was talking about the optimism, because there's new blood, I hope that this new blood will be open to increasing independence of the arms. They're as efficient as they're independent. And they can only be held accountable in as far as they are willing to be transparent. So coming back to this strategy, I think it's quite transparent because the first thing it does is it is realistic about the progress they've made. Then it's also very realistic about what they're able to do. And then they also tell you that, you know, we, as we are right now, we have a 45% funding gap that needs to be filled for this idealistic dream to come true. So it's up to now the second arm of government, parliament and the other arms, to see whether this is worth it. The other thing in your question that we need to look at is their roles, like the police. It's an executive role, but it's a role that aids all the 3 arms of government in enforcing their, you know. So the aspect of the security forces, the armed forces, the supportive environment for these arms of government to operate, how do we stop them sometimes being, how can I say, being victimized by the arms of government in the elbow issue of things. Then the last thing is corruption. I think that a lot of corruption has come from the gray areas. There's a lot of blurred lines between our arms of government, and I think it's going to be the challenge of the new government that has just come into power to make sure that we deblur these lines, because it's blurred lines that explain that these things are happening. Our budgets are, you see a budget in the executive is being spent on parliament, or the other way. We have parliamentary committees that are approving budgets for MDAs before they have even absorbed even 50% of the previous money. So the issue of accountability has been greatly defeated by those blurred lines, in my opinion.
How can they work in a cordial sense? Because like Jude said, the president makes a comment about what's happening in the judiciary. The parliament tries to frustrate what's happening in the judiciary. How can they coexist? Because it's not, this is the first arm, they're all arms of government. And as you said, they're cooking stones, all balanced there. How can they work cordially to deliver the service that Ugandans desire?
I think it is high time that we respected the systems we have put in place. I think that we need to stop respecting personalities and respect systems. I should be able to follow an instruction from an office as opposed from an individual. Now, we've seen a lot of individualization of offices, and this has caused again the the disrespect and the victimization. And another thing that it has also caused is that someone once mentioned that a housemaid in an MDA can get the MD fired. You know what I mean? Because of the blurred lines. Because how is the housemaid walking into an executive's office and reporting their boss, to the extent that people are working, with fear? Systems are not being respected. If I come and I say that I am the head of the judiciary and I want this budget, and I go to parliament, why do I have to pay allegiance to a particular parliamentarian? Do you understand what I'm saying? Individualizing offices has caused a lot of problems. So we need to see, the arms of government are like parents. When you're in a home, the children are going to play you. So as parents, you have to have a code of operating with each other, a code of mutual respect. When the child says, Daddy said this, you first ask Daddy, did you say this? Otherwise, the children are going to turn the parents against. And that's what we've been seeing. We've been seeing the ordinary people using the arms of government against each other. You get a court order, someone gets a policeman to arrest the lawyer who got the court order. You get this. So we have court orders that are not respected. We have laws that are being passed to defeat court orders. So you wonder whether Parliament, I'm sorry to say this Parliament, if you check, has more lawyers than we've ever had in any other parliament in Uganda. But you find that a parliament has passed a law that is defeating a court order that Jude got the other day, So we need to understand that if we respect the systems that have been put in place, if we strengthen institutions as opposed to individuals, we are going to now make sure that the arms of government do their role and they are not manipulated by civilian affairs. And I think that has been what has been plaguing us.
Thank you. Honorable John, and I like what Fiona says, institutions are not individuals, but that is not the ideal that is in this country. It's the ideal, but it's not the reality of what is in this country.
We can get there.
We're praying for that one. The judiciary, one of the things it's saying is that it wants to be people-centric.
Yes.
What does this mean? Because an ordinary Ugandan is saying, what are these people talking about? You have talked about people sleeping in the grass from 9 to midday, and the Chief Justice is not showing up. Or, like the resident judge is not present.
Chief Magistrate.
The Chief Magistrate, sorry, is not present. How do people feel that this service gets to them? How can the judiciary turn it around?
I think away from whatever nomenclature we put in place, an ordinary person out there, first of all, wants to see a free corruption court. And unless and until we work towards having a free corruption court that shall dispense justice with consistency, without having under the table discussions, we will be using all the English jargons and words and it will come to nothing. We must put in place systems that speak against corruption at all times. Today, we received a report from the Judicial Service Commission, and one of the things they highlighted was the fact that they want a more balanced judiciary that is not bent in one sub-region or the other. The general perception at a certain point of recruitment of judges was that the common phrase Gambano maybe has played a central role in the discussions. Now, this current awakening must not have a limit. There must be continuity, one, by the masses to demand for a fair justice system. But the other key aspect is to the personalities who are the office bearers. And this has a lot of bearing on how justice is done. We have had judges whom we speak highly of, and there are judges we despise. But the unfortunate bit is that the one you despise today, and not only John Taylor, but also so many other players who have been before him, will get a promotion to the Court of Appeal, or even to the Supreme Court, while the one who is actually held in high regard is tossed from this office to the other. Some of these matters are administrative, but for us to speak to the ordinary consumer of justice that we are speaking to, we must be holistic and address all the issues that are affecting the performance of the judiciary as a sector. If you look at it closely, the presence of individuals in these offices, and in all sub-regions, they will tell you, so-and-so is a good judge, so-and-so is a good magistrate, so-and-so is very bad. Before you know it, the known bad one is the chief magistrate. And so we have to...
do they report them?
Now, what is the reporting mechanism? Yes. And where do they report? Now, this is the infrastructure we must put in place. You know, the judiciary budget is a statutory budget. And I can't go without, much as Fiona believes that if we personalize the individuals, but the judiciary budget, being a statutory budget like the one of Parliament, is a discussion between the heads of institutions, the executive, and the head of the judiciary or the head of the legislature. And from the side of the executive, there has been a lot of goodwill in terms of supporting the judiciary to do its work. The figures that we saw in budgeting speak to so much, from 300, 400, now 600, in a period of just about 5 years. This goodwill must now be a subject of concern of, should we disappoint this goodwill that has been created? Why should we have judicial officers not appearing without any communication? Why should we have matters cause listed, matters filed in 2026 cause listed, when matters filed in 2015 have never been cause listed? This is now an internal check that must be done within the judiciary. I think all other players, like the Honorable Kabyanga was saying, the ICT system has been put in place, ICMIS is operating. Why should we have ICMIS? But we cannot look at the system and say this matter has been pending since 2015 and has not been heard. What is the reason? Who in the whole chain is attending to these matters? And I think we must speak to these candidly, collectively, and that's why I uploaded the role of other sector players, like the Uganda Law Society. I know Enoch would want me to use a different term, but despite its current state now, it came up. Sometimes the approach could look crazy, but it came up to awaken those very long sleeping demons that had been, that would have spoken to some of these matters. When we shifted, and I want to insist and be clear on this dimension of the new leadership, when we shifted from one age bracket to another, the funerals, the windows, the radical Nuba that we are talking about, they came up to demand for certain affairs that were never demanded for. And this is the spirit that we must create as consumers of justice. There is no way you can speak about a judicial service commission where lawyers are not represented, yet the lawyers are supposed to be part of the panel, and we are being held at ransom because there is a paper called a court order that has not been addressed for years. These are now the real facts that we must speak to without shyness. Let's address the realities. There has been a tendency of attending to so many symptoms in the judiciary. Now we go and commission a very beautiful building. We have put up a court office. It is so beautiful, well painted. Tomorrow you go, there is no officer seated there. There is no furniture. Very, very simple things. We visited a court in Liantonde in our supervisory responsibility. We were all embarrassed. And so, if this place is not ready for a court, why are we even putting it there in the first place? Why are we mocking the system? We should be more realistic in terms of approach of these matters than we have been. And that is why I have applauded the progressive character of some of the office bearers now. It's breathing a new life. This strategy, you are looking at it as being too ambitious, is realistic if we cover all the loopholes that have been existing. On the side of budgeting, I want to insist, because this has been the outcry for a very long time. Judiciary has a very small budget. Judiciary has a very small budget. Time and again, we have increased progressively and we continue to increase, and there should now be very limited public outcry on budgeting. Now, from the current budget we have, how much of it can we put to proper use? During our scrutiny of some of our policy statements, we realized that the institutions under the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee had a budget of training of staff that was totaling to, I think, over close to 100 billion. Training staff in one financial year. But when you go across all budgets of government, you will find we are talking about training. In judiciary, we are talking about training, because this is a prey to account for or account from. We concentrate so much on it, and I'm just giving an example of trainings. We concentrate so much on it, and then we ignore the real issues that we are supposed to be attending to, that speak to this person from Bugabla who is expecting to get services from this honorable court where he wakes up to go, and with a lot of respect and loyalty. It is now a rope in the neck on the side of the judiciary. There is personnel, there is budget, there is infrastructure, at least more than 50% from what 3, 4, 5 years ago. This should be sufficient to give us a semblance of expectation that we can have justice delivered in this country without excuses.
Honorable John, allow me to put you on the spot. You know, money has been talked about funding the judiciary. What are you as Parliament going to do, especially because the person at the bottom of this food chain is expecting justice? What are you going to do different? Because you've talked about 300 billion, 400 billion, 600 billion. What are you going to do different, especially to ensure that the judiciary gets enough money?
How many billions?
Judiciary, well, it is still, according to the strategy, underfunded. And that's a concern. But my first point is that we have made a very, very serious shift from where we were 2, 3, 4 years ago to where we are now. From 300 billion to 600 billion, we are able to show results. Now, that goes without saying that from the previous financing we had, infrastructure was put in place. We are talking about the ICMI system which the Honorable Kabyanga was talking about. Right now, if we are talking about dispensation of justice, we must be able to look at the system and say, why has this file been here for the last 20 years without disposing it off? Now, on the side of Parliament, and I'm glad and I'm happy that I am chairing the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, we have dedicated more time to going down on ground and raising these issues, and we have changed our strategy. This time we are writing to the Chief Justice, we are writing to the Inspector of Courts and say, we are going to visit the following courts. We want a team from your office to join us. We will tell you later where we are starting from and where we are ending. Come with us if you have time, but if you do not, dedicate an officer so that when the findings we get there are documented collectively and presented to you and say, is this a matter of budget? Is this a matter of laxity in supervision? What is the cause?
Let me ask you a more direct question, because you seem to dodge the one I've asked. Fiona said 45% of the judiciary is underfunded. What do you think is enough for judiciary? Now that I do not want to put you in the spot to say budgeting, how much do you think is enough? 600 billion seems to be 45% short.
Of course, money will never be enough. Money will never be enough. That's a standard.
That's okay. Now
but we are progressive.
Let me move on to Enoch, because Enoch, one of the things that is in this strategy is independence, integrity, and accountability. Ugandans feel like this is lip service and a mockery to them because they haven't seen this. What are you as government going to do to ensure that this service is felt to the last mile?
First of all, as I have said before, you must observe these things in the greater environment. And you look at things like infrastructure. So funding, first of all, is critical. But we also, maybe let me start at the people-centered service. What does it mean to be people-centered? And my land friend, Honorable Taylor, has talked about a small, embarrassing court in Liantonde. That perhaps might not be the problem. The problem is, do you think that the person in Liantonde who has probably ridden a bike over maybe 100 or so kilometers to arrive at that court, are they interested in the furniture in the small room, or they're interested in the officer being there and being able to give a service? That is people-centered. Should a person lie around in court simply because they are unrepresented or do not speak English properly? Should you strictly enforce in terms of the what I can call a bureaucracy of rules? You know, speak English, address me like this, address me like that, when this person is clearly uneducated and unrepresented. So some of those things do not need money, they do not need good furnishing, they just need a mindset change among our officers and to have a spirit of service. When you go back to accountability, what do we mean when we say accountability? And the challenge I have found in most of our discussions, and we like to have a lot of conversations, we should have a conversation about this, we should have a conversation about that. In these conversations, we are always on the outside of the situation. We never look at ourselves. So when you say accountability, who? From who? The judicial officer must be accountable. The lawyer must be accountable. The litigant must be accountable. Everybody must be accountable in the system. So it operates.
Held accountable by who?
We must hold ourselves accountable and hold each other accountable. So I must be able to take on a caseload that I can properly prosecute as counsel. So it should not be an excuse that I come to court and say, oh, please give me time because I must run to another court. I must take on what I can handle. I owe it to my client, I owe it to the court. So there's accountability everywhere. So when I have a feeling that sometimes when people talk about accountability, it is only one direction. They are only saying, give me what I want. They are not saying, let us do what we are all supposed to do to arrive at a conclusion. They are saying, no, you give me what I want. I don't care about you. And that is how they interpret accountability, which is not correct. But I think there is a lot of progress that has been made. These institutions work. As we have noted already, the statistics show that cases are increasing. So people have confidence in the judiciary. People's confidence in the judiciary is increasing for one reason or the other. So at least that on its own points to accountability. There will be cases here and there which attract the public attention, and people will tend to forget and judge the entire institution on the basis of one case, which itself is being misjudged anyway. Because these days everybody has an opinion. And it doesn't mean that when you have an opinion, however convinced of it you are, it does not mean that mine is wrong. Maybe you are wrong, and you are just unable to convince yourself that you are wrong. So we must give the institutions time and space. Incidentally, in our profession, I see all of us here are lawyers, except Honorable Kabyanga, but I'm sure he is sufficiently versed with the law. You know, there is the judge or the judicial officer has a right to make a mistake. It sounds funny, but he has a right to make a mistake. That is why there's an appeal process. That is why you can appeal. You can say, no, this one, his thinking is wrong, or he was biased, so I appeal to the next one. So but the fact that you may think that a decision was wrong, in fact, might turn out to have been wrong on appeal, does not mean that that judicial officer was not doing his work or did not execute his function properly. That was his interpretation. Otherwise, we would never have lawyers if we didn't have such contradictions. So there is accountability, there is progress, but we all need to play our roles and to be realistic. And we all need to dedicate ourselves actually to doing that which we are supposed to do, to providing that service which we are paid to do. All of us, then we shall function. Just a small last point. When you talk about also the other things that's around, you know, we do not have, legal representation is a very, very serious issue, and we do not have a policy, in fact a law on legal aid. Fiona, I think I started, when you came after us, and I think we had started it.
Yes.
When I was at the ULS. So it got stuck somewhere. But legal aid, for example, then there used to be something, some law on community service. But clearly it has not worked. It would work to save backlogs, save many things. Congestion in the prisons and so on and so forth. But still, for you to do that, you need some infrastructure. How do you enforce a judgment, a sentence of community service, for example? So there are many things that are collectively have to be looked at in order for us to achieve this plan, this plan of the judiciary.
Jude, let me come to you. and you mentioned some cases that are ongoing there, just in passing. Some people feel like the judiciary has been weaponized for political benefit. What do you make of this assertion?
Yeah, I think there is some merit in the concern from sections of the public that the judiciary is being weaponized for politics. Because you know what we see, even as lawyers, for example, we know what the Constitution says about bail. We know in Article 23, Clause 6, A, B, and C, that all accused persons have a right to apply for bail. A person who has spent, I think, 90 days on remand before trial for an offense which is not capital is entitled to be released on bail if they spend 90 days on remand. I believe when the Parliament was, the Constituent Assembly, when they enacted that provision, they were also looking at the decongesting prisons, so that people with the minor offenses are not unduly remanded. And then Article 23, Clause 6C specifically says, if a person spends 180 days on remand before trial, even if they are charged with a capital offense, they must be released on bail. Over 20 years ago, there used to be a lot of debate about what those provisions meant. And then the Constitutional Court clarified in 2006 the meaning of those provisions. So, and it has been very normal. All of us, I think most Ugandans, were used to the idea that yes, even if a person is charged with an offense, being released on bail doesn't mean that the person has been cleared. They are out there, then they will answer for their charge, one way or the other. By 2000, in fact, I remember 2006, when these members of parliament, then, I think around 2007, 2008, Regan Okumu, Philip Ochura were members of parliament, were charged with murder. They were given bail. Eventually, they went for trial. They were acquitted. So it had become like a normal thing that the judiciary will do its work. If politicians are charged with offenses, they are not above the law. Not being above the law means they will undergo trial. But it also means that the rights which all suspects enjoy, including the right to apply for bail and be released on bail in accordance with the law if they meet the terms, will be respected. I remember in 2005, when Dr. Besigye was granted bail by Justice Katusi, at the time it felt like it was a very momentous decision. No one, I think he's now in his retirement. The retired judge, I think, told some people that a fellow judge asked him when he released Dr. Besigye on bail in 2005 that, Judge, why are you fighting the government? And he said, fighting which government? And so there was a trajectory. Because, you know, there was this idea that the judiciary is like the last line of defense for citizens, to protect citizens against the excesses of both the executive and the legislature. When it comes to issues of human rights, if Parliament passes bad laws, if Parliament, for example, extends its tenure because they don't want to come back to elections and we vote for them again, it's a judiciary to say, no, you can't extend your tenure. If the executive starts clamping down on people, arresting people arbitrarily because they are conducting parades like soldiers, then people are charged with illegal drilling and they are remanded. It's the job of the judiciary to say, well, this offense actually doesn't make sense. Or to say that is a minor offense, you deserve to get bail. So Ugandans had gotten used to the idea that yes, the judiciary has a role to play, one in protecting our rights and especially protecting us against the excesses of the executive and the legislature. And it had become a fact of life. What has changed in the last 2-3 years that is of concern is it began to appear that there is a difference. His Excellency the President has had very consistent views, for example, about bail. From the 1980s, we have listened to his views, we have read about them. He has largely never believed in the idea that a person charged with a serious offense should be given bail. And he is entitled to have his views. But even then, his views never made it into the law. But now in the last 2 years, we are seeing a situation where the more he becomes outspoken about his views, it appears the judiciary has decided that the policy preferences, the views of the president about bail, become what they are implementing. So we have people charged with offenses who are even entitled to be released on mandatory bail. They are all in prison. We have this very embarrassing spectacle that still was not necessary involving the trial of Dr. Besigye. Something that for me, I think could have been cured in several ways. There were several ways to go about it. And the problem is, these very public cases, it is easy, like the judiciary has so many cases. They may handle 200,000 cases in a year and handle them very well. Chances are that many of us won't care. But there are those few cases which attract public attention. The way the judiciary approaches those cases and handles them is what determines its legitimacy and credibility. So the manner in which the judiciary approaches, for example, this issue of bail, especially regarding people who have cases smelling of politics, it doesn't mean that people who are in politics cannot commit offenses and they can't be charged. No, they can be charged. But when they are charged, they should have the same rights like any other suspects. So you have people charged with an offense called illegal drilling, a colonial offense, by the way, that they line it up as if they are soldiers. And they have been on remand for over almost a year. It's ridiculous. And then you have, all these situations that we are seeing. We see an accused person in the dock. He faints, and the trial is going on, and they are debating, can we try him when he's not there, even if he's sick? We have not seen that in the last 10, 15 years. And so it is important that the judiciary doesn't lose focus. They can have these beautiful strategic plans. I just quickly try to flip through. It's a very good document. It's very impressive. But what it doesn't say, and it has like a small portion about judicial independence, and making points that sometimes, people interfere with judicial independence, court orders are not respected. They give examples of RDCs. I think RDCs sometimes are unfairly accused because these are very small people really at the end of the day when you think about it. But for me, the elephant in the room is what they are not talking about.
What is that?
If we look at this issue of bail, how it's being approached by the judiciary needs to do self-introspection. I don't think anybody, President Museveni has not said if you release people on bail, I'll still ensure they remain in prison. He has not done it. But the judiciary on its own has decided to undermine its own independence and credibility by detaining people and denying them bail when they qualify. And so I think for me, this strategic plan that the judiciary has, many of us will not even think about it 2-3 years down the road if the judiciary cannot recognize that some of these cases that attract public attention must be handled in a manner that defends the legitimacy and credibility of the judiciary. No amount of strategic plans will save the face of the judiciary if they continue to get certain trials wrong.
And I'm going to come back to you on how it can insulate themselves, but let me come to the three legal minds that are here. Do you feel the judiciary is being demonized, or is government weaponizing the judiciary for political gain? I'll start with Enoch.
I don't think so. At all. I don't think so.
Especially with the most recent cases.
As I have said, if you look at the statistics and you are looking at 259,000 cases, and you are saying that because you are dissatisfied with only one case, then the whole the judiciary has now become a weapon against something. I think that is to exaggerate the situation. In fact, it is to misrepresent the situation completely. First of all, that particular case that they are talking about, which I would rather not discuss because, again, it is an ongoing matter, it has its own facts, it has its own views. And as I have said, that you have one view that you are absolutely convinced about does not make the other views wrong necessarily. So when you look at the case, if you look, we have, as I have said, over 400,000 cases. Annually, we are disposing about 260,000 cases. The question I should be asking: did those cases deliver justice?
Okay.
Was there judicial independence in determining those cases?
Thank you.
And the answer is yes.
Allow me bring in Honorable Taylor. Are we demonizing the judiciary, or is what Judy is saying valid, that it is being pressured politically, especially for the benefit of some?
Well,
the comment so that I can come to Fiona here.
Yes, the judiciary has done well in the previous years, but now this is a dent in its performance. We cannot say that it's all rosy, and especially on the matter of bail. But we are dealing with very different times. We are dealing with an era of social media where everyone has an opinion on every matter. I have been disappointed at even very senior gatherings. You find people discussing a social media post without actual facts, without even taking time to dig into details to know what could have been the underlying explanation. Someone writes a line or two, and then it generates debate, which wants to be constituted into a national debate. So the judiciary is dealing with serious challenges now, different times, different population, a lot of awareness that is taking place. It has to deal with this. I remember in 2006, like you said, when Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye was released on bail and rearrested that day, the judiciary came out stronger than it had been before when it withstood that pressure from the public to attend to the real criminal elements in the case.
Thank you. Fiona, are we demonizing, or there is political persecution to the benefit of government?
I think that there are cases where the judiciary has failed us. There are cases where it's been obvious that they have allowed interference. I think we cannot deny that. Then there are also cases where I feel that as, you remember when I said that we also risk the three arms of government being manipulated by civilian affairs. Now, we have a tendency in Uganda of focusing, of laser focusing on one matter to the detriment of all others. And I think this has created a lot of unusual pressure even on the judiciary to prioritize certain cases over everything else. Now, when things are done and they're done wrong, we need, first of all, the judiciary and all the other people, all the other heads of these departments that and the arms of government need to know that there is increased scrutiny because of social media. Everything is happening in real time. You do not have time to scrutinize, analyze, and beautify the situation and report it as you wanted to in the past. But because of that, we need to know that we are going to be judged. We're going to be judged by the court of public opinion. We're going to be judged by what people see. I think there's a time the president was talking about how people misunderstand bail. Someone is arrested for doing something, then the next day they see him walking and they think he's been set free. So there are a lot of things that are misunderstood, but there are also a lot of things that are being done wrong. Someone highlighted that issue of, you know, interesting rulings that show that either a judicial officer has not applied their mind to something, or we've had, someone was recently talking about how a judicial officer copied and pasted one particular side's arguments, and that was the ruling, you know. So there are all these obvious things, and when they are wrong, and we see them. And we also know that there are precedents where judicial officers have shown courage and nothing has happened to them. So I think also we need to now, in this case, individualize this thing. I think we also need to stop just generalizing the thing and demonizing the whole judiciary, because we have courageous judges that have done the right thing.
Thank you.
And influence will never not be there. The issue is, how do you respond? Yeah? And I call it courageous because it's not everybody that will actually resist that kind of influence, yes? And this influence moves even beyond political. There's also people who are being faced by financial influence, yeah, corruption and all these things. But what I wanted to say is that we also need, as a society, to change our focus from sensationalism to real results and what is it called? And impact. Yes. So some of the things that we've been seeing recently in the high interest cases have left us with a bad taste in our mouth, because we are wondering what that means and what kind of precedent is being set.
Thank you.
So we need to be very sensitive about the impact this is going to have, the precedent it sets, and what younger judicial officers will do if faced with similar circumstances.
Thank you. Let me come to Honorable Kabyanga. And Honorable Taylor said it very well. There is social media. You will see something on social media before it is somewhere in mainstream media. There is sensationalism. There is emotions. You talked about land. It has a lot of emotions. Or it's a family dispute. How can the judiciary, the word PR is even, I don't know if it's the right word I should use, but how should they put their image out there for the public to receive them and understand what they're doing without perceptions that are influenced elsewhere?
I think the judiciary has tried. I'm an ardent listener of media houses because I've been in that sector. I had to listen to so many media houses. And judicial officers have been on different medias to really educate people on their rights, and also they have tried as much as possible to clarify on several issues. But in the advent of social media, there are so many things which will come up, and you must be alert 24 hours. It's not only for the judicial officers, even you in the media. Even today I've seen a post associated with one of the media houses and it was a very dangerous post, and immediately after I saw it labeled fake. So the judiciary is also suffering from some of those fake propaganda. But we have to up, the judiciary has to up its sensitization, its PR. The communications officer has to be on the lookout. But also as the government is putting in place measures to see how they can achieve information. And technology is there. UCC is now trying to import technology, and which the government institutions are going to do what? To use. To the extent that if any fake news appears and it is associated with the judiciary, it will be shivved, because the system will say, no, this is not originating from what? From judiciary, or not related. And it is either blocked or it is clarified immediately. And you know, there are so many things. There are so many things happening now. You can, someone can be arrested, and the method of arrest gets altered by AI. You can even be arrested in a very civil way, in a proper way. But someone goes uses AI to show you being what? Brutalized. And what the population will see is that brutalism. They will not even investigate. I have seen so many things coming up, and when you look at it clearly, you say, no, this is what? This is not true. But you just, and just as I think it was Honorable Terra was saying, you just see people discussing a social media post in even a very, even in a high, probably what I would call high caliber sort of, even in the parliament, someone will bring up something on social media and it causes a lot of what? A lot of hell. So all those things, we have to guard against them. We have to be alert 24 hours, and the judiciary will not be saved. And it's not only the judiciary, so many other institutions of government, and not only government, even private individuals are being maligned, and therefore we are living now in a very sophisticated society. Which needs a lot of sophistication, both at individual level, at institutional level, and therefore when we are taking judgment, it should be really based on thorough investigation. And probably before I end, yes, the judiciary is improving, but just as all my colleagues here have alluded, the judiciary is not working alone. we also need a lot of improvement in these other supporting agencies. CID, for instance, it's computerizing. It is also going technical. There is a lot of technical intelligence now going on, technical investigations, but we also need to increase the staffing at DPP and also CID, because these are playing complementary roles. And also other investigative agencies like anti-corruption, IGG, they need to also be They also need to be facilitated, because they feed in the judiciary. And sometimes they also bring backlog, because the magistrate is waiting for other agencies to bring in. And also witnesses, they need to be sensitized. For us, I was a local government leader, and we lost so many cases because witnesses were not ready to do what? To go and testify on time. And you just see a magistrate in a catch-21 situation. A civil servant can't testify against another civil servant. And the case is either thrown out or it is adjourned David, until the magistrate says, let the case go. Eventually we say the magistrate is corrupt. So there are so many things which we really need to work on as a country. But I think if we can achieve our tenfold growth, we shall have enough money to invest in all these sectors, and then we shall create efficiency.
Thank you very much. Before I give you parting shots, let me read some of these messages. Good evening, Timothy. This is Jabloni from Gayaza. I love the discussion. The judiciary looks to be wearing yellow t-shirts or the uniform in yellow or the uniform of PLU in the eyes of the citizens. Whatever way they pretend, time is going to be very good medicine for them for such crazy decisions, just as Mugisha Muntu once said. Okay, I don't think he said yellow, but let's go on from that. A gentleman called Oloya from Gulu says, I'm a complainant on a forged land transfer in Wakiso by Hassan Malay, okay, let's leave that name, who kept on confusing the judgment from 2013 to date. I'm the complainant. The case is still ongoing. It's at Buganda Road Court, and it's still ongoing. I need to receive justice. I have been in court for the last 13 years. Okay. Ah, wow. They say we need to have legal aid. Some magistrates are like gods. They schedule cases and without notice are absent themselves, plus endless and needless adjournments of cases. Unless there is strict supervision, nothing will change with the people there. Okay. Another one sends it from Lira and says, the alternative dispute resolution has really helped us as a community. We appreciate it, especially in dealing with community challenges and moving forward. Thank you from Bishop Felix Emmanuel, alternative, talking about it and championing it in northern Uganda. He's from Lira. Finally, Nicholas Wako says, I am from Salama Road. In order for Uganda to achieve the efficiency in the following, expanding courts would be good, digital transfer and tracking of systems would be good, standardizing of court, video conferencing, conducting daily plea bargains, utilizing small claims procedures, activating prime court protocols, systems automatically are helping there. Okay. Finally, this is, well done, Timothy, thank you for the show. This is Daki from Rukunjiri. He says, we appreciate the improvement in the service delivery in the judiciary, but one major factor to consider on the matter is that the hindrance of progress, delays by corruption, issues of loss of files, delayed investigations are among the frustrating things that we face with our judiciary there. Thank you very much for your comments. We'll have parting shots. We'll start with Fiona, Honorable John, Enoch, Jude, and finally the Honorable Kabianga there.
First of all, thank you for having me. I want to congratulate the judiciary on the strategic plan. I also want to emphasize that we should recognize effort. Yes. And I think that the effort I would want to recognize here is that there's been significant change in the judiciary's ability to handle matters in the last 5 years.
Yes.
So we need to give all the support. This is a call, to the executive, to the government. We need to give all the support to the judiciary, but also to the supporting environment, the other departments that need to make sure that backlog and access to justice backlog removal and access to justice are now reality, including the public defense dream. We need to put more money into increasing access to justice in this country. When we don't have that, our, what did they say, tenfold? Will be sabotaged, because we'll have a country of criminals, people who are seeking who are taking the law into their own hands because they cannot access justice. Yes, but we also need to understand our role as individuals, as the village, in advocating for increased accountability at the top. We need to also applaud the efforts that are being made, especially in this strategy, to increase accountability of the judicial officers. I want to applaud the Judicial Service Commission. I've heard good things from the committee chairman. But I also think that we need to also encourage the education. I think one of the things that's going to have to happen, Honorable Minister, our Honorable former Minister, is education of our masses on how to do research. And now I'll say the last thing, to the Fourth Estate. I think the Fourth Estate has been responsible for a lot of misinformation, a lot of how things are turned around, a lot of rhetoric that sabotages progress when it comes to how things are reported, because journalists have more, people trust them more to do research, to investigate, to have facts. And we've had a lot of move towards sensationalist headlines. Recently, we've even seen a habit of them copying things from social media and reporting them. I think recently we saw a big ruling against Daily Monitor that's going to cost them quite a pretty penny for doing something like that. So we need more journalistic integrity, because the Fourth Estate is a direct interpretation for the masses on what's going on.
Thank you. Honorable John.
Well, one, I want to thank our dear viewers for according us this time. Now, on the issue of judiciary, I will continue to state that I have a lot of confidence in the team that is actually spearheading this whole strategy, right from the leadership of the Office of the DPP, the Chief Justice, and other office bearers along the way. So if they do not actually get sleepless nights for failing to address the challenges in the judiciary, they'll be betraying so many of us who have a lot of confidence in them. But the other key aspect that we must not underscore is we are talking about agencies, especially of government and other sectors that contribute to the achievement of the strategy and reducing backlog. But they are the sabotaging agencies that we are not talking about, which we very well know, and I find that very challenging. When we talk about the challenges the judiciary is facing now about bail and then receiving orders, who is talking to these powers that are frustrating the judiciary to achieve these targets? And I think when we start beating about the bush and don't address this matter, will also be not realistic. If there are these known institutions that are affecting the performance of the judiciary by sabotaging their efforts in one or another, then we should kindly speak about them, join the others. We want the clergy, we want the others to speak to them, but when we come here, we want to shy away from speaking reality to them. And I think that's my parting shot.
When they fail to get a spokesperson, they should come for you. Honorable, Enoch there.
My last thoughts perhaps would be that we all have a role to play in improving the performance of the judiciary, like we have in improving the performance of any other area of our public sector. The idea is to maintain a consistent pursuit of a goal and to put in the hard work. There is no other way to get the results. We can talk forever, but that is the only way that the work is going to be put in. So far, the consistency in pursuing that goal is achieving results and is promising to achieve even more. All we need to do is take accountability seriously on what is our role to play and whether we have played that role.
Thank you very much. Jude?
I think reflecting on this particular theme, what relevance we can make of the judiciary's 5-year strategic plan. What I would want to say to the judiciary and to all the stakeholders in the justice law and the order sector who can make this plan possible. The judiciary has one important asset, and once they lose it, nothing else can be of value to them. Credibility and public trust. When the public trusts that the judiciary is an impartial arbiter of justice, that is more valuable than any funding the judiciary can ever get. And the moment the judiciary loses credibility and loses legitimacy in the eyes of citizens, the moment the majority of citizens do not look at the judiciary as an arm of the state where citizens can go for protection against the excesses of the executive or parliament. The moment the judiciary doesn't have that, the moment it loses that legitimacy and credibility, no amount of funding would ever give it the moral authority that it can command by that. And so for me, it's very important that magistrates, judges, and justices of appeal reflect more critically about whether the current circumstances, whether they are doing more to further legitimacy and trust in the institution. Because that is ultimately more important for the future of the judiciary than any amount of strategic plans.
Thank you. Finally, the Honorable Kabyanga.
Yeah, I think to my colleagues here, who are, and most of them are lawyers except me and Timothy. He's a lawyer also. Then I'm in trouble. But this is the chicken thieves, and I think Honorable Terra talked about it. Should they go for remand? These chicken thieves, and mainly when they are first offenders. I don't think really someone who steals a chicken, who steals a pig, should go for what? For remand. I think now, Honorable Terra, since now you are chairman of parliamentary committee, or legal committee, we need to work on the law somehow. Probably we introduce community service. If you're a chicken thief, you really don't need to go for what? Now, if it's there, a chicken thief should not go for what? For a man. Because that one should actually get an express sentence. Because the chicken is only, they normally tie it around the what? The neck. So it's not even going to say I didn't steal what? The chicken. And most of the people who are crowded in these prisons, they have stolen chicken, they have stolen pigs. Yes, petty offenders. I think those ones really, Honorable Terra, you need to work seriously with the judiciary and see how we can decongest the what? The prisons, so that we leave there the friends of otherwise, I would like to thank the judiciary to go digital. That is very, very important.
Yes.
If you are left out in the digital world, then you are going to be finished.
Yes.
Because you will be fought. But if you computerize and you go with the trend, you are going to see how to defend yourself. But also government is trying to see how they can get an integrated system so that there is easy sharing of what? Of information. And I think when we achieve that, most of the systems will move faster than they are moving now.
Thank you. Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much for coming and discussing such a patent issue. For you watching us up to this very hour, we appreciate, and whoever sent in the message today, we appreciate that. The production team that has made today possible, thank you very much. We'll end with this quote. An independent judiciary is a crown jewel of our constitutional republic. Good morning.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
A woman is the full circle. Within her is the power to create, nurture and transform. My guest since last week is the original queen of Katwe.
What is very interesting is the fact that I personally have worked in Katwe.
You've worked in Katwe?
Before the birth of Hato.
How have you worked in Katwe?
I've worked in almost every slum in Kampala.
And what do you
and
want
I've worked
with
with
slums?
the local councils. It's all about rescuing an abused child. And finding hope for them, placing them in safe and loving environments. And most African parents are sick parents. They are sick. They have mental health illnesses, untreated, unresolved trauma. Whether it's childhood or trauma they picked over time, but they are sick.
An aircraft that is 100% from head to toes, completely produced and assembled in Russia with Russian products, including engines, including semiconductors, including processors for the flight management computer, including chips and everything. So it's a huge step forward. Boeing cannot do it. Boeing is just an assembler. They're using GE engine or Pratt & Whitney engines or Rolls-Royce engine, and they need the titanium that is coming mainly from Russia or other countries. Airbus is incapable to do this because we broke the chain of production And without the help of Spain, Germany, England, and other countries, we cannot even assemble the single fuselage of that aircraft.
This was the argument for so long that globalization dictates that cannot be done. The different countries have to have a say in different parts of an engine, etc. This is putting paid to that argument, saying that, yes, we can, and we've got the confidence to do it.
Well, if you want to be a sovereign country, yes, you can do it. Russia is a sovereign country, and this is what it means.
That takes a lot of hard work.
But of course, it takes a lot of hard work. But look at what has been the huge step between now and 2022. Only 4 years. It's not a lot. It's a huge step. And even for the engines, I know that a lot of people in Europe are going to say, yeah, it's not a good aircraft, it's consuming a lot. No, it's not true. The engines, the PD-14, are just 5% behind the Rolls-Royce engine, or the Pratt & Whitney engines, and only 2% behind the General Electric engine.
People watching this, of course, Cyril, will know that airfares have been going through the roof in recent years. Might the production of the MC-21, might it bring down, first of all, domestic prices for people flying, and then perhaps expand that as well?
Well, this is what as a pilot, this is what I hope myself, because everything is going to be product, and everything is product in Russia, in rubles. We do not depend to other countries for aircraft overhaul, aircraft maintenance. You know that on aircraft maintenance, you have calendar, cycle, and hourly maintenance. Everything is going to be done at home, I would say. So it would reduce the cost a lot compared to the cost of having Airbuses and Boeings. So one can expect that the fares are going to be lower when this aircraft is going to be fully used. But I mean, what also is very important for the people to understand is that it's not the first MS-21 that is flying. It's the first MS-21 from a serial production, not the test aircraft, the serial production that has been flown. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity with some people from Irkutsk to fly the simulator of that aircraft. I'm very much looking forward to fly the full flight because it's really a great aircraft. It's a wonderful achievement from a lot of people.
Now, another story. American tech giant Meta is attempting to mend its relationship with New Delhi. According to RT sources, CEO Mark Zuckerberg has offered an apology to the Indian Prime Minister after being given 3 days to do so. It follows a scandal in which a video address by Narendra Modi was abruptly booted off Facebook. RT India correspondent Rujuta Tete breaks down the country's response to an apparent case of high-level censorship.
Now, this apology follows public scrutiny, which was very intense in India, as well as pressure from the government. And as per Indian government sources, Zuckerberg has sent his apologies regarding the child sexual abuse material, deepfake content, and errors in operating the platform. It was made clear to them that they are not covered under the intermediary definition, and they select who receives such content. In fact, safe harbor under IT Act are also not applicable, was said by the Meta. Now, in fact, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Communications and IT has grilled the Meta global team, and it gave Zuckerberg just time for 3 days to issue an apology regarding takedown of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's video on Facebook. Now, this video was posted by PM Modi on 23rd July during the youth-led and as well as student-led protests that were going on in India. And in the video, Prime Minister Modi were actually addressing the youth of the nation, and he was promising stricter action against the examination paper leaks. Now, Facebook had called it a technical glitch. However, India had rejected that explanation and said that it is inadequate and unreasonable. Now, separately, Meta's Chief Global Affairs Officer had also met with Indian IT Ministry Secretary, that's S. Krishnan, to explain the entire lapse and also talk about the child sexual abuse material on Meta platform. In fact, apart from IT Secretary, the Meta team also met with India's IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, and the police have also raised and registered a few cases against Meta's country head and several Facebook as well as Instagram users over posts that were deemed offensive against Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, Nishikant Dubey, who is the head of the parliamentary panel on IT, had also tagged this controversy as an attack on democracy and also stated that the government may revoke the safe harbor protection that is provided to social media platforms in India and would also initiate legal remedies. Let's listen in.
If you recall, Zuckerberg himself made a statement in January regarding the 2024 elections and later apologized. When a video of the Prime Minister of India can be removed, and they themselves admitted that the content was missing for 5 hours, from 12:30 a.m. to 5 a.m., this is a very serious matter. Our committee has clearly stated that an apology should come from Zuckerberg. If Zuckerberg does not give one, then his safe harbor protection under Section 79 should be withdrawn.
Now, what exactly is the safe harbor clause that they are talking about here? It is a provision under India's IT Act that shields internet platforms from liability for user-generated content as long as they act neutral, host and follow due diligence. Now, if this protection is withdrawn under any circumstances, then Meta and its officials could face a flood of complaints. Now, separately, Meta has also been under scrutiny over the issue of child sexual abuse material which was seen in paid advertisements on Meta platforms, and the government just last month had slapped a notice on Meta over this issue. In fact, the parliamentary panel today also warned all social media platforms to comply with these rules or face a case.
Well, in the latest episode of the Sanchez Effect, Rick hosts a former Indian foreign secretary who says social media algorithms play a pivotal role in pushing one-sided narratives.
What do you make of these algorithms that they use in social media? I'll give you an example in my case, right? I mean, I have won Emmy Awards, I have won Peabody Awards, journalism awards. I've worked at CNN and NBC. I've interviewed 4 different presidents of the United States and other prime ministers and world leaders. And yet now, simply because I'm based in Moscow, the algorithm says I have to be excluded from YouTube. So they've taken down my name, my brand, my channel. It doesn't seem fair to me. I'm no different a journalist here than I was when I was working in Washington or New York or Miami. But the algorithms say that now I'm a bad guy. That doesn't seem fair to me. It's almost like what they're doing in this case, is it not?
Well, I think you're using very mild words, saying it's not fair. I think it's worse than that. I mean, this is contrary to all the values that they talk about and espouse, and they harangue the rest of the world with those values which makes them feel morally and politically superior. This kind of censoring, this kind of suppression of voices, not allowing the public to get access to different points of view by serious people. Now, you are a serious person. So it's not as if you are a propagandist of any kind. But look, at the moment I'm in Paris and I see the French TV, my God, you would think that Russia is collapsing. It's finished as a country. It's on its last legs. It's going to break up. And Kiev is successful in every possible way. And then any drone thing that happens anywhere in Europe, this time in Germany, somewhere near Dresden or someplace like that, again, that these are the Russians who are doing this and stuff like that. Now, this kind of brainwashing that is going on, I can understand that you have a kind of an honest debate where a person can hold these views, but then there is another person who gives a different point of view so that the public can judge where really the truth lies.
Of course.
But it is also one-sided.
Now, Yemen's Ansar Allah, known as the Houthis, have said they've hit a Saudi oil tanker in the Red Sea, something Riyadh has not yet commented on. Well, the group's military arm has declared its blockade of the kingdom ships is going to continue no matter the cost.
While implementing the Yemeni armed forces as Sion to impose a maritime blockade on the Saudi enemy and to reinforce the equation of a blockade for a blockade, the Yemeni armed forces, by the grace of Allah, successfully targeted the Saudi oil tanker Wafa in the northern Red Sea, off the coast of Yanbu, with a number of ballistic missiles. The strike